Yeah.
Okay, so you got some stats here. What's your stat going on with this? Let's make maps cool again. You know, it's in cool colors. So. What? It is. Those are cool colors.
I'll wait until you're not being sarcastic.
I'm being serious. Look, it's cool colors.
This, I think, will make a lot of sense for people. And going forward, when you have conversations with people, when you're discussing China, this will help put things into perspective.
Okay.
This is the Human Development Index. So this is basically, I'll read you the quote. The Human Development Index it measures things like education, right?
Okay.
But so the Human Development Index, HDI, is a statistical composite index of life expectancy, education, meaning years of schooling completed and expected years of schooling completed upon entering the education system. So how much education you get.
Sure.
Per capita income. So how much money do you make? Are you poor, right? And that's what ranks things. So you have life expectancy, education, and money. Those are the three important things that kind of make a developed country.
Okay.
Now, when you look at China, I think it's a huge problem with a lot of media outlets or people in general is they look at China as a singular entity.
But it's a massive country.
It's a massive country. And every province has its own kind of metrics and its own wealth and its own development, right?
Yeah.
And really, what China wants you to think is that the whole country is on par with America.
And they'll show you a shot of Shanghai or something,
Correct.
you know, the Bund, and say, hey, look, this is China, but it's not.
Correct.
And having ridden motorcycles throughout the whole of China, both of us, we've seen exactly what China's like.
Yes.
And it's very different to what you see.
So instead of using China's government statistics to say is it developed or not, because that's all you'll get from China.
Yeah, sure.
Is we are the best in the world, right? What if we looked at Human Development Index, and that is, again, life expectancy, education, and money.
Yeah.
Those are the three things that kind of drive society, right?
Sure.
If we look at that based on province, we can actually compare them to countries to actually make you understand that this province is probably on par with quality of life.
So that's why
to
we've got all the
country.
different countries in this cool colored map.
This cool color map.
Yeah.
Now, the reference points down here at the bottom are the important ones to understand if you're from America or the West. If you pull yourself out of there real quick.
Okay.
Hong Kong is at the Human Development Index of Australia.
Yeah.
And Macau is at the Human Development Index of the United States.
Okay.
Now, those are colonies that are not part of mainland China.
No, it's not part. They're
have
like
their own
separate. You
governments.
need different money.
Yeah,
You need
the
to go
border.
over borders and stuff. Yeah.
Those are the things to keep in mind as that's what China wants you to think the whole country is.
Sure.
And I thought that was important to include.
Yeah.
When you actually break it down, let's look at a very developed province like Guangdong.
Yes.
Guangdong is the same HDI, Human Development Index, so the quality of life, as Albania, right? And that's nothing against Albania, but this is 10 times less than America.
Yeah.
Right? We're talking, when you go over the border, we're talking 10 times worse.
And it's true. The thing is, if you go right over the border into Shenzhen, it looks fancy, and it
Yes.
is. That is a fancy city. But if you've traveled extensively around Guangdong like we have, there's a lot of poverty.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very backwards as soon as you get out the big cities.
I mean, you look at some of these other provinces. You look at Hunan, right? Look at Hunan. Hunan is the equivalent of
Peru. Yeah.
And Jiangxi is the equivalent of Algeria.
Yeah.
You know, these are poor countries.
It's an interesting map. You guys should study this if you are so inclined.
You have, really potent examples, like the richest province of China,
Yeah.
which is Jiangsu, right, is the equivalent of Kazakhstan. And I don't think anyone's walking around saying, "Oh, Kazakhstan, that's the leader of the world,"
Sure.
right? It's not a super impoverished country, but it's not. It's England.
Yeah.
It's not the U.S. right?
no.
It's not Singapore.
Correct.
You have countries all the way, or provinces up there like Harbin is the equivalent of Turkmenistan, which is a wildly poor country.
Sure.
I mean, these are countries that are very, very poor. They're at the middle to the bottom of the world. And you can see how China kind of tries to avoid these macroeconomic values.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to think this stuff. They want to say, we as a country are developed and we've already surpassed America in AI. We've already surpassed Europe in whatever, in infrastructure or something.
Sure.
But when you actually look at how people live, it doesn't matter what government projects exist. It doesn't matter what bridge they built or what dam
high-speed
they made
rail
or high-speed rail. Because the average person that lives in Guangxi province is the equivalent of someone living in Egypt.
Yeah.
And if you ask someone in Egypt, do you think China is richer than you? They would absolutely say yes.
Yeah.
If you ask any of these countries that have a very strong stranglehold on the media about China in said country, if you ask someone in Ecuador, right, do you think Chinese people are, more technologically developed than Ecuador? They probably say yes, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, they're the same level as Sichuan.
Yeah.
Right? Philippines, I mean, you look at Yunnan province, is the same as the Philippines, which everyone knows is not a wealthy nation.
Sure.
So I think this was an important map to understand that China, you can't look at it like a singular entity.
No, of course you can't.
I think it makes more sense. You could look at your own country perhaps on this map and kind of put it into perspective of what the development index of China looks like. Because when you take the propaganda away, it's important to understand that China is not a global leader in almost anything.
Yeah, that's right.
You know.
It's a global leader in making a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I keep saying this, they'll always they will say, we've got like the most EVs created or the most kilometers of high-speed rail. But just because you're making the most of something doesn't mean you're making the best
I actually heard that quote the other day, and that is something I want to drive home, is that most isn't good.
Yeah, it doesn't mean good.
Where did anyone, think about it in terms of, we like watches, right?
Yeah.
No one says this watch was the most produced watch in the world, so it's the best, right? You like something that is of high quality because it's built to certain tolerances.
The most produced shoes, they're going to be crap.
Yeah. No one says like, let's say the most produced car is, for some reason, let's say it's a Lada. No one says, the Russian Lada built in the Soviet Union, that's actually the best car ever made because it was the most.
Because it was the most, yeah.
That's not how it works.
The most doesn't mean best.
Right.
Quality and quantity are not equal to each other.
Before you finish this off, I wanted to point out one thing, that just so we're fair. The highest, right? Let's say Shanghai.
Yes.
The highest human development index in mainland China would be Beijing and Shanghai.
Yeah.
And that would put Shanghai, which you would think is a world-class city, on the same level as somewhere like America or
like
New York or something. But it's Poland. Yeah. And again, props to Poland for pulling out of the Soviet Union, making their economy so much better. But
making good sausage.
Yeah, but definitely not a rich country, right? Yeah. So the richest in China is somewhere in the middle of Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's perspective.
Yeah, it's good perspective to have.
Lauban style.
Yeah, we're wearing the Lauban shirts today.
Oh, she's here.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, she's here. I think you should eat me first, and I'll eat you first.
That sounds terrible. If you eat the fox, then bugs won't bite you.
What?
Now, the weird thing about these Chinese vampires is the way they move around. Jumping corpse! They burn money, fake money. They burn fake houses. They burn fake cars. They create a lot of pollution, basically, for ghosts. Yep. She secretly urinated in the monk's bowl.
Ah, yes, as you do. It's just shocking to think you would let a baby die for like a 90-year-old woman that's already lived her life.
90-year-old woman.
And she's not even related to you.
No, dude, I'd leave her outside in the cold or something, you know? Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Can almost sing it. When I take a breath, you fill up my lungs. And if my mind